It sat there under a dusty tarp, looking less like a prancing horse and more like a sad, forgotten banana. This was a Ferrari 308, a car that once graced posters on bedroom walls. But time had not been kind. Its giallo fly yellow paint was faded, chipped, and in some places completely gone. Rust had started to bubble up around the wheel arches like a nasty rash. The once proud black trim was cracked and bleached by years of sun. It was a sorry sight, a supercar that had clearly seen better days. You couldn't help but feel a bit sorry for it, sitting there all alone in the corner of a dark, damp garage. Opening the driver's door produced a groan of protest from the hinges. The interior was even more tragic than the outside. The beautiful tan leather seats were split, with stuffing poking out like an old teddy bear. The dashboard was a mess of cracked plastic and gauges that had long since given up telling the time or speed. A musty smell, a combination of old leather, damp carpet, and probably a few mice, filled the air. You could almost hear the car sighing, resigned to its fate as a piece of forgotten automotive history. It was a project, that much was certain. A very, very big project indeed. This wasn't just a car that needed a quick wash and a polish. This was a full-blown rescue mission. Every single part seemed to tell a story of neglect. The iconic pop-up headlights were stuck, one up and one down, giving the car a rather confused look. The alloy wheels were corroded and caked in decades of brake dust. Even the famous Ferrari badge on the nose was tarnished and peeling. It was going to take more than just enthusiasm to bring this legend back to life. It was going to take patience, a lot of hard work, and probably a fair bit of money too. The journey ahead looked long and daunting. But underneath all the dirt and decay, you could still see it. You could see the beautiful lines penned by Pininfarina. You could sense the V8 engine, just waiting for a chance to roar again. It was a ghost of its former self, but the spirit was still there. The challenge was immense, but the thought of seeing this yellow Ferrari gleaming in the sun, driving down a winding road as it was meant to, was all the motivation needed. The decision was made. This sad yellow banana was going to be saved. The restoration journey was about to begin, one rusty bolt at a time. The first rule of restoration is that things always get worse before they get better. And so, the teardown began. Every single piece of the car had to be removed, catalogued, and inspected. The interior was stripped out first, revealing a floor pan with more holes than a block of Swiss cheese. The seats, dashboard, carpets, and door cards were all carefully taken out. Then came the exterior trim, the bumpers, the lights, and all the glass. Each screw and clip was placed in a labeled bag. It was a slow and methodical process, like performing surgery on a very complex, very Italian patient. The garage quickly filled with parts, a giant three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. With the car stripped down to a bare shell, the true extent of the rust became terrifyingly clear. It was worse than we thought. The sills, the floor, and the lower parts of the doors all needed serious attention. This is the part of a restoration that tests your will. It's not glamorous work. It involves angle grinders, welders, and a lot of noise and sparks. New metal panels had to be carefully shaped and welded into place, replacing the rotten sections. It's a bit like being a dentist, drilling out the decay before putting in a filling, only on a much larger and rustier scale. Every bit of corrosion had to be chased down and eliminated completely. While the metalwork was underway, attention turned to the mountain of parts that had been removed. Everything needed cleaning. Years of grease, oil, and road grime had to be scrubbed away. The suspension components, the brakes, and every nut and bolt were degreased and cleaned until they looked almost new. This is where you find more problems, of course. Worn-out bushings, seized brake calipers, and frayed wiring all add to the ever-growing shopping list of new parts. It's a meticulous, often tedious task, but it's essential. You can't put dirty, worn-out parts back on a freshly restored car. That would be just plain wrong. Slowly, very slowly, things started to look less like a scrap heap and more like a car again. The bare metal shell, now completely rust-free, was a beautiful thing to behold. It was a blank canvas. All the suspension and brake components, now cleaned, rebuilt, or replaced, were ready to be reinstalled. The process of putting things back together is far more satisfying than taking them apart. You start to see progress. The dark cloud of what have I gotten myself into begins to lift, replaced by a glimmer of hope. The car was no longer a patient in critical condition. It was on the road to recovery. With the bodywork solid and the chassis components ready, it was time to address the heart of the beast, the 3-liter V8 engine. It was lifted out of the engine bay with a crane, a greasy, oily lump that hadn't turned over in years. Like the rest of the car, it needed a complete teardown. Every piston, valve, and bearing was removed and inspected for wear. It was clear this engine needed more than just a service. The timing belts were perished, the water pump was seized, and the carburetors were completely gummed up. It was a mechanical mess, a testament to long-term neglect. The engine rebuild was a delicate and precise operation. New piston rings, bearings, and gaskets were ordered from Italy, which always takes longer than you think. The cylinder heads were sent to a specialist to be reconditioned. The carburetors, the key to that classic Ferrari sound and response, were painstakingly rebuilt, with every tiny jet and float cleaned and calibrated. It's a job that requires immense patience and a very steady hand. As the engine slowly came back together, piece by piece, painted and polished, it started to look like a piece of mechanical sculpture. It was no longer a greasy lump. It was a Ferrari engine, ready to sing again. Meanwhile, the body shell was prepared for its new coat of paint. This is perhaps the most critical stage for the car's final appearance. The entire shell was sanded down, over and over, with finer and finer grades of sandpaper until it was perfectly smooth. Any tiny imperfection would show up under the glossy new paint. A layer of primer was applied, then more sanding. This process was repeated several times. Finally, it was time for the color. The car was rolled into a brightly lit spray booth, and the Giallo Fly yellow paint was expertly applied, layer after glorious layer, followed by a clear coat for that deep, wet-look shine. Seeing the car in its fresh paint for the first time was a milestone moment. It was no longer a sad, faded yellow. It was a brilliant, vibrant, dazzling yellow. The color popped under the lights, and the flawless finish reflected everything like a mirror. It finally looked like a Ferrari again. The long hours of grinding, welding, and sanding suddenly felt completely worth it. The car was now a perfect, gleaming yellow shell, waiting for its heart, its interior, and all its shiny trim to be put back. The most exciting part of the restoration, the final assembly, was about to begin. The end was in sight. The final assembly is like putting together the world's most exciting and expensive model kit. The newly rebuilt V8 engine was carefully lowered back into the freshly painted engine bay. Connecting the wiring loom, the fuel lines, and the exhaust system was a slow and deliberate process. Every connection had to be perfect. The refurbished suspension and brakes were bolted back onto the chassis. The iconic 5-spoke wheels, now stripped and powder-coated in their original silver, were fitted with brand new tires. With each part that was added, the car looked more and more complete. It was a magical transformation from a collection of bits into a coherent machine. Next came the interior. The smell of musty old leather was replaced by the rich aroma of brand new hide. The seats were retrimmed in beautiful tan leather with perfect stitching. New carpets were fitted, and the cracked dashboard was replaced with a pristine new one. The steering wheel was recovered, and the dials were all cleaned and calibrated. Slipping into the driver's seat for the first time felt special. It was no longer a sad, broken space. It was a luxurious and inviting cockpit, exactly as it would have been when it left the factory in Maranello all those years ago. It felt and smelled like a new car. The day came to turn the key for the first time. It's always a moment filled with anxiety and excitement. Would it work? After a few seconds of the starter motor whirring, the V8 coughed, spluttered, and then burst into life with an angry bark. The sound filled the workshop, a glorious 8-cylinder symphony that had been silent for far too long. It was a sound of victory. All the hard work, the late nights, the busted knuckles, and the empty bank account were justified in that single moment. The Ferrari was alive. It was breathing. It was ready. Driving the restored 308 out into the sunlight for the first time was an unforgettable experience. The Giallo Fly paintwork shone, the engine roared, and the car felt tight and responsive. It was no longer a sad wreck, but a proud supercar, reborn from the ashes. The journey from a dusty, forgotten relic to this gleaming masterpiece was long and challenging. But the satisfaction of saving a piece of automotive history, of bringing a legend back to life, is immense. It's more than just a car, it's a story of dedication, passion, and the joy of creating something beautiful. The sad yellow banana was sad no more.